What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rovardo, and today I want to do a mock draft talking about the Giants and predicting what they will do in under 2 weeks from now at the NFL draft. Now, this is not going to be a what I would do mock draft. This is going to be more based on all of the rumors, just kind of like rounding up and recapping all that we've heard over the last couple of weeks and synthesizing it into one 3 round mock draft predicting what the New York Giants will do on April 24th and 25th, since it's a 3 round mock draft. It's day 1 and 2 of the draft. So I don't want to waste any more time. I just want to go ahead and dive right into it. And with the number 3 overall pick in this mock draft, I'm predicting that the Giants are going to take this guy right here, Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Now, this is my prediction currently. Maybe it's not going to be my prediction the night before the draft. Maybe it will be. That just depends. But right now, the rumors indicate that obviously number 1 overall, Miami's Cam Ward, the quarterback, is going to go to the Tennessee Titans. But number 2 overall is the big question mark. That's where the draft really begins. Now, I've stated in the past that I have this gut feeling that the Browns are ultimately going to go with Shedeur Sanders and take a quarterback because, let's be real, there's no way that they're rolling into the season with just Kenny Pickett on their roster. But if we're going based on what we've heard and the rumors that we've heard and the reports from Schefter and the other guys, it sounds like they're leaning towards Travis Hunter. And I think you guys know I prefer Travis Hunter with the number 3 overall pick in this draft. If the Giants are able to draft him at number 3, that's who I want. I think he's an absolute superstar in the making. I think that he fits one of 2 needs or 2 of 2 needs for the New York Giants. I hope Travis Hunter is there at number 3 overall. But if we're going based on the recent reports, it doesn't sound like Travis Hunter is ultimately going to land into the Giants' lap with the 3rd overall pick. So then it becomes a question. Do they take the best player available, or do they take the quarterback, being Shedeur Sanders? And again, based on predictive mock draft here and based on the reports that we've heard, Schefter, Daniel Jeremiah, Albert Breer as well, they're all kind of saying it doesn't sound like the Giants are in love with Shedeur Sanders for the number 3 overall pick. Now, could they maybe trade up for him and draft him later? Absolutely, that's a possibility, but it sounds like they prefer to go with the best player available at number 3. And that would be Abdul Carter in this situation. Now, if you have any reservations about Abdul Carter, I'm sure that I can guess what they are. Number 1 being his injuries, right? He has a stress fracture in his foot right now, and he has some sort of a shoulder sprain. And those are the 2 injuries that he's currently dealing with and nursing in advance of the NFL season. Now, everything that I've read indicates he will be healthy and he will be ready for the regular season. Whoever drafts him is going to feel comfortable drafting him top 5. That's what I've read. That's all the reports. So if the medicals check out, the talent is undeniable. The guy he has elite get off. He's got size. He's got an immense amount of speed for an edge rusher. He's got strength, power, finesse, all of those things. He really is a special player. And considering he used to be an off-ball linebacker and just now got started in his final collegiate season on the edge, first of all, his career path is very similar to that of Micah Parsons. Second of all, that gives him a lot of untapped potential. He's still a very raw product at the edge rusher position. Now, as just a general defender, as a linebacker / edge hybrid, yeah, he's got all the boxes checked from a physical standpoint. He's got all of the tools, the traits that you want and you need from both a linebacker and an edge rusher. But he doesn't have the pass rushing moves. That's probably the second thing that you might say out of concern for an Abdul Carter selection. Well, he's only got the 1 or the 2 few pass rushing moves. And while you're not theoretically wrong, if you're that dominant with the 1 move that you have, and we've seen this before with a lot of the best edge rushers in the NFL, if you're really dominant with the 1 move that you've got, you can go really, really far and find a lot of success and rack up a lot of pressures and sacks and tackles for loss if you're a good run defender as well. So it's not a major concern for me, especially considering Carter is one of the younger players in this draft class. Like I said, he doesn't have a ton of experience playing on the edge, so that gives him room to grow, but so does his young age. The kid just has all of the physical and athletic tools that you dream of in a pass rusher, just rare in that regard. And I think everything else figures itself out. Right? If you're talking about his pass rushing moves, I think you can coach him and teach him some more pass rushing moves. If you're talking about his health, he's young. I think he's going to recover. And if it was something that had long-term injury concern, we would have heard about it by now. Those are the 2 concerns, and they don't concern me all that much. I look at his strength, I look at his speed and get off, and I see a player with sky high potential, could be one of the most dominant defensive forces in the NFL in the right situation. Now, are the New York Giants the right situation for him would be the question mark. They've got Brian Burns, they've got Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence obviously on the interior. How does this all shake out? Who gets the playing time and who doesn't? Well, I actually was on social media and somebody sparked the idea or in my head about doing some research on what the Giants defensive line looked like in those two Super Bowl runs. And I realized not only did they already have Tuck, Umenyiora, and I believe Strahan on the roster, with those guys, they still spent, I believe, a first-round pick on Matthias Kiwanuka. And then when Matthias Kiwanuka, Umenyiora, and Tuck were all on the roster, still spent a first-round pick on Jason Pierre-Paul. And that defensive line, as we all know, both of those defensive lines, those were the difference makers in those Super Bowls. And we know defense wins championship, all of that. And I get the counter argument. The defense couldn't have made those plays in the Super Bowl without a franchise quarterback getting them there. I understand that. I absolutely do. But just looking at it from the standpoint of playing time and snap shares and snap counts, there is absolutely a way to get all of these guys on the field, A, at the same time, and B, rotating them in so that they're all playing at least 60 to 70% of snaps per game. I don't think that the Giants edge rushers should be playing as much as they've been playing. Like Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau playing over 80% of snaps last season when they were each respectively healthy. That's not a good thing. They're on the field too much. The Giants didn't have enough depth on their defensive line and in their edge rushing room. A lot of that had to do with, yes, Kayvon Thibodeau being, or I'm sorry, not Kayvon Thibodeau, but Azeez Ojulari being banged up a lot. So they didn't have the depth there because their depth was injured. But outside of Azeez Ojulari, they still did not have a ton of talent in that edge rush room outside of Burns and Thibodeau. Now, if you plug Carter in there, you can get all three of those guys on the field. They don't have to play 80% of snaps. They're all on the field for 70% of snaps, let's say. And that 10% really does make a monumental difference. It keeps them fresh, it keeps them healthy, and you can always find creative ways to get all three of them on the field at once with Dexter Lawrence. That's four great pass rushers getting after the quarterback. And that's similar to that NASCAR package that all Giants fans know and love. That's how you can form a dominant defensive front. So that's something that I think would be really exciting for Giants fans. I do think there is a way, and there's many ways to justify Abdul Carter with the number 3 overall pick. I do understand why some fans have some reservations over how practical it is to have all these edge rushers. Listen, the more pass rushers, the better. In the modern NFL, in the retro NFL, throwback, future, doesn't matter. Pass rushing always is going to lead to big plays and championships at the highest level for those best teams. So I'm in on Abdul Carter. If both Travis Hunter and Cam Ward are off the board, that would be my selection. And in this predictive mock draft, obviously, I believe that would be the New York Giants selection as well. Now, moving on to round 2. This would be where a lot of Giants fans feel like the team would go quarterback. And I don't think so. And the reason being, and I know that there's been a lot of rumors, and we've discussed a lot of them on the channel, that they're interested in this guy, Jackson Dart. They're interested in this guy, Jalen Milroe. Oh, maybe they want to trade up for Shedeur Sanders if he slips a little bit. I get all that, and I still think all of that's possible. Listen, the draft is a crapshoot. I'm doing this predictive mock draft based on some of the more recent rumors. Again, the rumors change overnight every single night. So we'll see ultimately how I feel the night of the draft. I might have a completely different prediction. But right now, I think that the Giants are aiming to go best player available in round 1 and round 2. Because if you're not sold on any of the quarterbacks at number 3 overall, you clearly don't feel like quarterback is a strength in this draft class, A, nor the biggest weakness on your roster, B. And as I always say, I think you only reach on a position or you only reach on a player in the draft if it's for a quarterback who you believe can be a potential franchise quarterback. I don't think that you necessarily reach on a quarterback in the second round who is developmental. I don't know if that's the way that the Giants would view this thing. So if it's not Shedeur Sanders at number 3, I don't think they take a quarterback at number 34 overall. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But right now, again, based on the current rumors and reports, I think they would go best player available. And in this mock draft, I'm going to predict that the best player available would be a defensive tackle. Now, plug in your name here, whether that's Tyleik Williams, Darius Alexander out of Toledo, Tyleik obviously being out of Ohio State, I'm going to go ahead and speak on Derek Harmon out of Oregon. I think that he's a really interesting prospect who does excel against the run, but also has some pass rushing upside. And I'll read you guys his report here from Pro Football Focus to give you additional context on him. But again, Derek Harmon, 6'5", 310 pounds. Dude is a big unit. And imagine putting a 310-pound defensive lineman on a defensive line alongside your 340-pound all-pro nose tackle in Dexter Lawrence. And I think it's important to note, nose tackle Dexter Lawrence, right? The Giants shouldn't be looking for nose tackles in this draft class. Well, Derek Harmon, thankfully, is a three-tech, so more defensive end, think, lining up and getting after the guard rather than getting after the center. So I like Derek Harmon. This is what PFF had to say about him, saying Harmon has just 1 year of notable production, but that season showcased a player with a high football IQ, consistent competitiveness, and NFL level quickness. He can be an effective three-technique defensive lineman for an even front. So when you're looking at Derek Harmon and the production that he did have last year, there were a lot of quarterback pressures. So really, essentially, what we're doing in this mock draft so far is saying the best offense is a fantastic defense and pass rush, right? Like, what's the best way to beat a opposing offense up? Get after the quarterback, pressure them from the interior. Oh, the pocket collapsed on the interior. Now you're rolling to the edge. Boom. Meet Kayvon Thibodeau. Meet Brian Burns. Meet Abdul Carter. This is a defensive tackle prospect here in Derek Harmon who has tremendous pass rushing capabilities. So not only are you bolstering your run defense because you're adding a 310-pound man to the middle of your defensive front, but you're also getting a guy who moves like he's probably more 260, 270. And so he's going to be able to push that pocket. And then you're talking about a 5-man pass rush. You could put 5 linemen down and just get after it. You obviously are rotating those guys in. Sometimes you're only rushing 4. Sometimes you're only rushing 3. I understand that. But on the times when you want to rush 5, let's say it's third down, third and long, fourth and long, you put those 5 guys on the defensive line and just get after the quarterback. Sack City. I mean, that's literally what it's going to be. And the New York Giants, the old school New York Giants defensive line will hopefully return. So I like Derek Harmon there, and that's only because I think he'd be the best player available. I don't think ideally the Giants want to go defensive line with their first and second picks. I think really they want to go Travis Hunter in the first round and then maybe defensive line in the second round. But if it's Abdul Carter and Derek Harmon's the best player on the board, which he very well could be, he's projected to go in the first round in some mock drafts, late first round, of course. But if he's there at number 34 overall, he very well could be. He would be a really exciting selection to me. And this would be a Giants defensive line that the expectation would have to be top 5 unit in the NFL. Like, this team needs to finish top 5 in sacks. Otherwise, the front office completely misjudged everyone on this defensive line. So that would be the second pick in this predictive mock draft that I have here. Derek Harmon, the Oregon interior defensive lineman. Now, moving on to round 3. This is where the fun begins because this is a 3-round mock draft. However, Giants have 2 picks in the third round, and yes, I'm going to discuss both of those selections, starting out with number 65 overall. So our first 2 selections didn't go offense at all. And I think that the Giants, if they were to go through those first 2 picks and not take a playmaker or anybody on the offensive side of the ball, this is where they'd say, okay, now we're going to have to force it for need. Our offense did finish 31st in the NFL last year. We have some talent here. We need more of it. We need some guys who can make some big-time plays. And one of the positions that the Giants didn't fully address this offseason was wide receiver. They re-signed Darius Slayton, and they added a couple of depth pieces to the back end of the roster. But did they bring in a premier playmaker to pair with Malik Nabers? No. Are they going to get a premier playmaker in the third round of this year's draft? Probably not. But they might get a guy with a lot of upside that they could develop. And that guy, for me, is going to be Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, who I know you've all heard me talk about before on this channel. I really like Trey Harris. He's 6'3", 210 pounds. He's physical. He can play against the press, and he can get upfield in a vertical sense, which is exactly what the Giants are going to want now with Russell Wilson throwing the football. So not that this is me drafting over Jalen Hyatt, let's say. I just think, again, if you're going BPA, let's take the best players available to us and try and work the draft board based on the value that's presented. I think Trey Harris in the third round is a really good prospect. I mean, I remember at one point he was talked about as a potential first-round pick. Then he was a second-round pick. Now he's a third-round pick. Man, if he's there at number 65 overall for a guy who used to be viewed as a first-rounder, that might be some really good value. And I like value. And I think the Giants do too. So I think that Trey Harris is a value selection there at 65. Again, he's physical. He can beat press. He has a great vertical route tree. Yes, he needs to work on some stuff on the intermediate to short portion of his game. Yeah, maybe he could get a little bit better in some other parts of his game, but I like him as a contested catch receiver. And I think that long term, couple of years of developing, I could see this guy being a very capable wide receiver too in an offense with Malik Neighbors. And the connection that I always love to bring up because I think it's exciting, this was Malik Neighbors' quarterback in high school. They're already friends. They're buddies. They've been teammates and competitors before, teammates together in Louisiana at high school, during high school, I mean, and then competitors against one another, both competing in the SEC, Ole Miss versus LSU. So I like this idea. I think this would be a great addition to the Giants playmaking group, and pairing Trey Harris with his high school playmaker and Malik Neighbors, sign me up, man. Sounds exciting. And I just want to say, like, if you're looking at the production that Trey Harris had this past season, he was injured. And I know that's going to be a cause for concern for some people, but he also just had the most ridiculous stat. If you know what yards per route run is, Pro Football Focus uses this statistic. Usually you see a really dominant receiver have like a 3-something yards per route run. This guy, Trey Harris, had a 5.12 yards per route run. I don't know if I've actually seen that metric that high before in any of these draft guides that I've looked at from PFF. And just a couple other stats that they do have that I'll bring up. First of all, over the last 2 years, he averaged at least 17 yards per reception, which is incredible. He's a deep threat for sure, but his contested catch rate was 61.5%. Imagine having a WR2 who could catch 60% of the contested balls that you're throwing him. Fantastic. That's what the Giants need. And he had a 95 overall PFF grade versus man coverage, over 1,000 receiving yards last season in only 8 games. Just a tremendous amount of production. Despite being injured and missing some time that season, still was really productive and was dominant when facing one-on-one coverage. So really like Trey Harris in the 3rd round of this year's draft. Apologies, guys. My hair is all out of whack. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow, but I know that you guys don't really care about that. It's just bothering me because it won't stay in place while I'm recording this video. And there's my moment. I have to have every moment in every video where I try and add in a little bit of my sense of humor. So I hope you did appreciate that moment. But now let's go on and move to this final pick in this predictive 3-round mock draft for the New York Giants. And this is where it's going to happen for me. This is where a quarterback is going to be selected. Now, I know that this might not be the most thrilling selection because Giants fans, you want a Jackson Dart at 34 or a Jalen Milroe at the back end of the 1st round. I know that's what you probably want to see happen. However, in this mock draft, I'm doing it based on predictions, predictively, trying to take a look at the rumors and the reports, and I just don't think the Giants are keen on burning one of these early picks on a quarterback. The reason being, let's recap those first 3 picks. We got Abdul Carter, Derek Harmon, and Trey Harris. All 3 of those guys might start for the New York Giants day one, make an impact for a head coach who's on his last leg, for a general manager who's about to get fired if he doesn't produce some wins this season. Those guys are going to win games. Now that they have this number 99 overall pick, it's house money. They got this for free. It's a compensatory pick. This is where you burn it on a developmental prospect if you're Joe Schoen and Brian Dable trying to draft players who will help you win games to save your job. This pick, this free extra pick that you got, that's the one you throw on a guy who's probably not going to play this season. And that could be Will Howard. Will Howard, the quarterback out of Ohio State. Shout out to my dear friend Cam Simpson. He's always in all of the Bleacher Report live streams that I do. He's always in here on the Fireside Giants live streams that we do. He's talking about Will Howard out of Ohio State. He thinks he could be the steal of the draft. And you know what? He's not the only one. I know that Will Howard has a lot of supporters, and a lot of them, you guys, I read the comments on Fireside Giants. A lot of his supporters live in this comment section. I like Will Howard. Let me just clarify. We haven't talked about him a ton on the channel. There's more research that we need to do on him, Alex and I. We're going to probably do some sort of a live film breakdown for you guys on this channel since you've requested it. But let me just get this out of the way. There are not a lot of quarterbacks in this draft class who fit the mold, the archetype, the prototypical build of an NFL quarterback. Even looking at the top of this draft class, guy like Jackson Dart, he's not a 6'4", 6'3", 225. He's not like the prototypical build of a quarterback. Neither is Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward is closer, but he's still not quite there. Will Howard, though, looks like an NFL quarterback. Like he is a good 6'4", I would think. That's 235 pounds. Like he is built like a guy who was born to play quarterback at the NFL level. And I know that size isn't everything. Size matters, but size isn't everything. It's all about the throwing motion, the motion of the ocean. All right, I'll stop now. I understand that being a tall and strong quarterback isn't everything. Otherwise, Daniel Jones would be the GOAT because he was 6'5" and built like he was born to play quarterback at a high level in the NFL. So I get that. And don't think that this is me trying to say that Will Howard is going to save the team. But what we like to look for with mid-round prospects is translatable tools and traits. And oftentimes, size at the quarterback position is a translatable tool/trait that quarterbacks have coming out of college that helps them succeed at the next level. So I'm just bringing that up to check that box off for Will Howard and also point out that this is a weirdly undersized quarterback class. And Will Howard is not in the undersizing of this quarterback class. Now, he's only 23 and a half years old, which is actually a little bit on the older side of the spectrum, but even still, 23 and a half makes him a solid young rookie who you could throw into the fire, and you feel comfortable letting him sit for a year. He'd be 24, 25-ish when he does get his first start. If that's the case, I think that's fine. But I'm not saying that he's necessarily guaranteed to become a starter one day. I think he's got the tools and traits to become a starter, Will Howard. He's a damn winner. Shout out to Cam Simpson, also always making that point in the comment section. He's a winner, which is huge. Like the guy won the national championship and played well in the playoffs. Like he is a guy who knows how to win in high intensity moments, which I do think really is crucial for some of these quarterbacks. And when you're also looking at the rest of his, his body of work, you're talking about accuracy, talking about a strong arm, and you're talking about decision making. And if you want to look historically in the NFL recently, there's been a decent run on Ohio State quarterback CJ Stroud, obviously being the big standout. So this is a kid who threw for 4,000 yards last year. He had 35 touchdowns. He only had 10 interceptions. He kept the ball clean. He played well when he wasn't pressured. Playing under pressure is a concern for Will Howard. But again, he's got time to develop. And I think at the very least, this kid will be a good backup quarterback in the NFL. I don't know if he ever becomes a full 17-game starter. I don't know if he becomes a top-tier, top 15 quarterback in the NFL. But I think that with the tools and the traits that he has, which I know I've mentioned plenty, and watching the games that he's played in, and watching the way that he's played in these games, the accuracy that he has throwing deep, his ability to check down when he needs to, yeah, his play under pressure is a problem, which is why I think at the least he's a high-end backup, but I don't think that's a bad thing to have. The Giants should be taking a quarterback at some time in this draft because of not only because they don't have a long-term solution to the position, but they don't even have a long-term backup solution to the position, right? And you look at all of the best teams in the NFL. What do? They draft quarterbacks in the mid to late rounds of the draft. Think about the 49ers taking Brock Purdy. What were they expecting? A good backup. They thought he had tools and traits to be a good backup. Now they've got a franchise quarterback in Brock Purdy. All right, that's one example. How about the New England Patriots? And this is my favorite example to bring up. They just drafted Joe Milton last year in the 6th round after already drafting Drake May 3rd overall. Now, drafting Joe Milton in the 6th round, that kid appreciated in value based on one regular season, meaningless Week 18 game that he played in. He went from being a 6th-round pick to being traded for a 5th-round pick. That is an appreciation in value that is exclusive to the quarterback position. They appreciate in value or maintain their value better than any other position. Think about Josh Rosen being picked top 10, having a historically one of the worst rookie seasons ever in the history of the NFL for a quarterback. Gets traded for a 2nd-round pick, and I believe an extra 3rd-round pick or 5th-round pick, something like that. But a 2nd-round pick the following offseason. How's that possible? It's because he's a quarterback, and they hold their value, and they appreciate in value. So when you take a guy like Will Howard, there's value there just because you have a quarterback who was on a rookie contract. A young QB on a rookie contract is one of the most valuable things in the NFL. The Giants, yeah, I love Jameis Winston. He's a great backup quarterback, and I've praised that contract a million times. It's a great deal for the Giants. But it's not a 4-year contract on a rookie deal for a quarterback who has upside to potentially grow into something special. And that's what the Giants need. So I would really like to see them, if they don't take a quarterback in the 1st round, some fans say, just don't take one at all. No, absolutely take one, because they might become a valuable trade chip down the line for you, or they could develop into a capable backup for the next several years. Or who knows, maybe they do become the starting quarterback and you never see it coming. You never saw Dak Prescott coming. Russell Wilson, our current quarterback, now is a perfect example. He was a third-round pick that nobody expected to become a franchise quarterback. He's too small. He's too short. He's undersized. He runs around too much. Can't play from the pocket. Future Hall of Famer, picked in the third round. So you just never know. Don't get this twisted. I'm not saying that if the Giants take Howard at number 99, they're getting a future Hall of Famer. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's so much value in having a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract for the next 4 years. And Will Howard is a guy who I think has tools and traits. And at pick number 99, it's a free pick that the Giants just got. It makes a lot of sense. That's when you want to take your developmental, high upside, but probable backup quarterback. So that's going to wrap up mock draft 1.0 here from myself. This is a predictive mock draft as a reminder. This is not me necessarily doing what I would do, but this is doing what I think the New York Giants will do based on all the rumors, reports, and speculation that we've heard over about the last week or so. So just to recap, I had Abdul Carter, number 3 overall in the first round. I had the Oregon defensive lineman, Derek Harmon, in round 2. I had Trey Harris in the third round, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, number 65. And then I had Will Howard, quarterback out of the Ohio State University at number 99 overall. I like this draft class. This is one that I would definitely praise and be excited about. I think the Giants majorly improved their defensive line, created an absolute unit up front with the additions of Abdul Carter and Derek Harmon. I think they added some upside on the offensive side of the ball as well, though, with a playmaker like Trey Harris, who's got the upside, as I've mentioned, and with Will Howard, who gives them a long-term stability and hope at the backup quarterback position. Maybe he becomes a starter, who knows, but stability and hope at the backup quarterback position, but also upside is really important when you're looking at quarterbacks. So I like this mock draft, but guys, let me know what you think. First and foremost, comment your mock drafts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you think or what you think the Giants will do. We'll do a more what I would do mock draft down the line, and that's when I want you guys to tell me exactly what you would want to do in a mock draft. But right now, what do you think is going to happen? Who do you think the Giants are going to land in this upcoming NFL draft? I'm curious to know all of your thoughts down below in the comment section, and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.